animals with a skeletal system or backbone. Today, we're going to start looking at the other phylum within the animal kingdom, invertebrates. In your notes, if you would please write invertebrates. You don't have to write the wonderful world of invertebrates. So if a vertebrate is an animal that has a backbone, an invertebrate would be an animal that
doesn't have a backbone.
Very good. Does not have a backbone. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to start talking about one of the animals within that class, one class of animals within that phylum, the segmented worm. And so what we're going to be doing today, your learning objective is I can use a model. In this case, it's going to be a model of a dissected organism. I can use a model to identify common characteristics of animals within the invertebrate phylum. So let's go ahead. You should have just written a vertebrate in your notes. Remember, if Miss Neville goes too fast at all during this lesson today, this lesson is being recorded and it will be made available to you as soon as our class concludes on Miss Neville's YouTube channel and in your Schoology blue folder. So let's go ahead and get to work. In our notes, let's write down that question. What is an invertebrate? What is an invertebrate? Here's what we need to make sure we have in our notes. An invertebrate is an animal that does not have a skeletal system or a backbone. These animals often breathe, reproduce, and obtain resources. 3 of the 4 characteristics we talked about that all organisms exhibit. These animals do these things differently than vertebrates, animals with backbones. So I want you to keep your mind open today and prepare to have it blown as we start talking about the segmented worm, one of our most developed invertebrates, and we're going to be able to look at some of its body parts and what processes it goes through to continue to live. So some examples of invertebrates are echinoderms. You've seen these on TV. Patrick from SpongeBob is a poorly drawn version of an echinoderm or sea star. Cnidarians like jellyfish, polyps, sea sponges, arthropods, mollusks, and last but certainly not least, segmented worms. I want to make sure I give some props to Mr. Rogers, our very busy principal who stopped by today to dissect. He did the hard stuff. He cut our specimen down the middle so that you're able to look inside today with me and Miss Neville doesn't get her pretty nails dirty. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. So go ahead. You don't need to draw these pictures, but you will need to write down what you see here in white. And you do not need to write this 3rd bullet. Take some time to get this done. Miss Neville is going on in 2 minutes.
Miss Neville.
Hey, Emma.
Will we be have another set of notes?
Yes, ma'am. They'll be released in your blue folder as soon as this class concludes.
Okay. Miss Neville?
Yes, ma'am.
The thing that looks like a worm looks like a centipede.
Yeah. And so we're going to be able to talk about how there are lots of different examples of segmented worms. We'll talk about those today. So get excited. So the segmented worm, please write this down in your notes. Today, Ms. Neville's going to be using a highlighter because our background is black. It's important for us to know that the segmented worm, see the highlighted, Ms. Neville just did the little yellow line through. The segmented worm reproduces, obtains resources, and breeds differently, usually, the invertebrate that we studied at the beginning of this week. So when we're talking about how the segmented worm reproduces or creates offspring, makes babies, it depends on what segmented worm we're talking about. So the segmented worm that we're actually dissecting today, that we're actually looking at together, it reproduces sexually. Do you remember? That means it needs a male and female to reproduce and make offspring. Also, there are some segmented worms that can reproduce asexually. That means a part of their body can detach from itself and form a new organism. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, that's really cool. How our worms obtain resources or eat is specific to where they live. Some segmented worms can be aquatic. You see that word here in our notes. Some segmented worms can be aquatic, and some segmented worms can be terrestrial. An aquatic segmented worm lives in water, okay? A terrestrial segmented worm lives on land. So the segmented worm that we're actually dissecting and investigating today lives deep in the soil. So as you see Miss Neville go through parts of its body, you'll see a lot of black stuff there. It's soil, okay? That's actually how this specific segmented worm eats. This segmented worm eats by taking in soil, and its body does a really good job of filtering through all of that soil, finding the nutrients and putting those nutrients in its body, and then the rest of the unneeded soil goes out the back of that worm. Gardens love, and gardeners love worms because poops out what it's able to.
I can't hear anything.
I'm sorry, Emily, the lesson is being recorded. Please mute yourself and keep yourself muted. What it's able to get rid of, it's able to fertilize and make plants really, really strong. And so we see that the segmented worm is an amazing organism or living thing because it helps the environment that it lives near. It's also important for us to know that the segmented worm, use white. It's also important for us to know that the segmented worm is ectothermic. The segmented worm is ectothermic, what we like to think of as cold-blooded. Do you remember? An ectothermic animal, its body temperature changes with the outside temperature, with the temperature surrounding it, okay? So an ectothermic animal, its body temperature changes with the outside temperature. Okay? Ectothermic. That ecto means outside, and therm, here that root, means heat. So outside heat is what determines the body temperature of the segmented worm. please take some time to finish writing this down. Miss Neville is going on at 12:45. Please keep yourself muted. I don't want to repeat myself again.
You type it. This is what's fun.
Miss Neville,
Yes,
did you want us to draw the chart down?
you will. Yes, ma'am. If you don't have time to do it now, this lesson is being recorded and the notes are going to be available in your blue folder so that you can make sure that you get it. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So as we continue here with our segmented worm, please mute yourself, Marley. As we continue here with the segmented worm, it's important that we look at some very unique parts of its body. Okay, so when we look at the segmented worm, we're going to find that it has a circulatory system. Go ahead and write that down for me, please. A circulatory system. And it also has a nervous system. This is extremely important. And these two systems let us know that the segmented worm is one of the most developed invertebrates in its phylum. So when we're looking here, a circulatory system, it has a heart and blood vessels that we're actually going to be able to see today. And it helps to circulate blood and necessary fluids throughout the body, okay? It helps to circulate blood and necessary fluids throughout the body. This makes me think differently about fishing now, but another important thing about the segmented worm is that it has a nervous system. That means it has both a brain and nerves. And what we need to understand here as sixth grade scientists is that this tells us that it's able to feel pain. It feels pain. Okay? So when you see that worm squirming on that hook as you put it on, he feels every bit of that, every bit of it. Okay? So it's important for us to understand that the segmented worm is one of the most developed invertebrates because it has more organs or body parts that helps it to survive. Okay, we're going to be studying the sea sponge tomorrow, and you're going to see it's a very simple invertebrate. We're even going to compare the segmented worm with that sea sponge, and you'll be able to see how that segmented worm is so much more developed than that sea sponge. Take some time to finish these notes. Miss Neville is going on at 12:50. So as we continue here, I want to show you a picture of a perfect dissection. So even in ours, if you're not able to see all of these parts, it's important for you to know that the segmented worm has certain body parts that helps it process food and reproduce in certain ways. So when we're looking here at the segmented worm, when we're looking here, and I want to not share my whole screen so I can make sure that I'm watching the class. When we're looking here at the segmented worm, it's important for us to understand and take note of some really important parts here. The segmented worm, we'll see it has a heart, it has hearts, okay, that circulatory system, it circulates blood. We're going to see it has an intestine, a gizzard, a crop. These organs help to digest the food that the segmented worm takes in. That black stuff, just like Miss Neville told you, that's soil. And within that soil was the food that this poor guy was dissecting before he was taken and used for medical science. And we're able to see here that it has glands for its mouth and all of these parts here. You'll see here these seminal vesicles. These hold the cells that help to make offspring, okay? These seminal vesicles here, okay? What you'll notice, and what I want you to pay close attention to here, is that the mouth is here. The digestive system runs throughout the entire length of the earthworm. So what we see here is the mouth is at one side of the earthworm on one end, and at the very other end is the anus, okay, where the excrement or the poop comes out from the unneeded soil that it's taken in. So let's take a look here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. Aiden, while I'm sharing my screen with the webcam, will you go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what you need?
So I was wondering about like the nervous system. Like you said, it was like, does our nervous, like when we get nervous, is that where that comes from?
Well, there are certain synapses that cause us to have feelings. But yeah, the brain processes all kinds of feelings that we may have. And so, Yeah, kind of. For our purposes, yes, sir. Any other questions here? Peyton, go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us what you know.
I have a question about the worm picture we just looked at. Was that a female or male?
This was a male, but what's really important here about the segment, go ahead and mute yourself, Peyton. You got a lot of noise in the background. Good. What's really important here is for you to understand that some segmented worms can have the body parts of both female and males. That's important because they still need to be able to create offspring, even if there's not another male or female near them. So sometimes some segmented worms have body parts of males and females. Ezekiel, go ahead and unmute yourself and tell me what you need.
Tomorrow, are you going to dissect a starfish?
No, they cost too much. Anyone else? Okay, so let Ms. Neville give me a second here to cut on our webcam.
Miss Neville.
Yes, Emma.
Will we have another slide to do or no?
No, ma'am, that was our last bit of notes.
Okay.
Miss Neville.
Yes.
Are we gonna dissect anything else through the rest of the year?
No, sir.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So Ms. Neville will share her screen now so that we can see our segmented worm. So what we see here is the entire segmented worm. Now for lab safety, Ms. Neville has her hands covered, pretty little nails are covered so she can't get them nasty. Okay, and what we see here is our entire length of our earthworm. Okay, the entire length of our earthworm. We see up here at the very top is its mouth. Okay, and then we see Mr. Rogers did a really great job of cutting just the skin open so that we're going to be able to look inside of this earthworm to see some of the very important parts. Now, I'm going to put in your notes, you don't need to draw this, but I'm going to put in your notes a picture of the earthworm. Okay, give me a second. I'm going to pull this guy apart. Here we go. Okay, so we see up here at the very top where its mouth is. Give me a second, let me bend it back. We see up here at the very top that organ there called the pharynx, okay? And then as we continue to go down our organ or our specimen, we're going to be able to see the heart. It has multiple hearts. Okay, we're going to see those organs. Can someone turn on their mic and let us know, what is that black substance there? Can you remind me?
Soil.
Soil.
Very good. So as we're looking here, we'll see the digestive tract. Please mute yourself. Give me a second, please. Yes, Emma, what do you need, sweetie?
Is that a real worm?
It is, yeah. It is. Okay, and so when we're looking here inside of our specimen, we're going to be able to find that the digestive tract runs down the entire length of our earthworm. So it takes in soil here at the mouth, okay? And then we're going to find, as we continue to go down, this is its anus. And the soil, the unneeded soil that didn't have the nutrients that the earthworm needed, will be able to be, it will turn into excrement and come out the other end. And this really helps our flowers grow and be really pretty. If we were to peel this back and lay that skin bare, you're able to see what we could think of as its stomach or intestine runs down the entire length of its body. Okay? The entire length of its body, we'll see. That soil. In fact, if Miss Neville were to cut open this intestine, we're going to be able to see a lot of black substance pour out. That's just the soil. Okay, and so I'm going to cut that open so that you can see what happens there, what comes out. I'll move my big hand in a second. Here we go. So we're able to see here, this is soil. It's just soil. And it runs the entire length of, Mr. Rogers, you did a good job cutting. It runs down the entire length, see, soil, the entire length of the earthworm. Okay. This is our anus. This is our mouth. Okay. Most of the organs of the earthworm, forgive my big hand, I'll move it in a second. Most of the organs of our earthworm are going to be at the top part of where we would call it its head. Okay. Get my little scissors here. I feel like a surgeon. Open up this side so you can see. Okay, they're not pretty like the diagram we were able to see there. Okay, but most of the organs are going to be on the other side of our segmented worm. Here we go. Okay, where we're able to see very clearly, yes, we're able to see some hearts there. We're also going to see the seminal vesicles where those cells are to create offspring sexually. Wow, look there. Okay, so you're checking for understanding today. We're going to be talking specifically about the organs here within our earthworm. What's important for us to understand, what's important for us to make sure we take away from this lesson is we need to make sure we're able to understand why the earthworm is so developed. And the reason for that is all of the body parts or organs that it possesses. So today, checking for understanding, it's going to be published in both of your science classes. When you look in the blue folder, you're going to find this assignment, checking for understanding segmented worms. Okay, you're going to complete that. It's one question, and it talks about the development of the earthworm. Remember, you get 2 attempts. So you'll want to do your best, and if you have any questions, before you begin your second attempt, you'll want to reach out to Miss Neville